Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little watercolour painting on one of my new pads. I've ordered two, which I obviously haven't opened yet, and I ordered them from Pink Pig. Now this is a company that I've used quite a lot in the past. I did buy my first Pink Pig pad, it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, a few years ago in our local art shop, Studio Arts in Lancaster, and I really loved the paper. And another thing I really like about it is it's fairly local. So it's obviously a UK company, but it's not far away in Yorkshire. And they do lovely papers, and the thing about them is they've got a really nice hard back on them, so when you're working out and about you've got always got something to lean on. So I'll open this up and let you have a look at what we've got. So I think they're A5 size that I ordered. They have been here waiting to be open for a few days. I've had a busy few days and not got around to opening them, but I'm sure that I ordered the A5s. And they always come with this nice sticker on with our little pig. So yeah, there you go. So we've got the two A5 pads there. I'll just pop the invoice to one side and get rid of that. So the first thing you'll see is they've got these lovely covers of this sort of mulch of all sorts of fibres in there. I'll hold it up a bit further to the camera there. You can see lots of lovely texture and colours, and you can choose so many different colours. So you can personalise. If you have a look on the website, you can choose the paper that you want inside, and then choose the colour of the cover as well, so you can make them personal to what you want. And they always come with this little interior of the pigs. So this one is a coloured sketch pad. I decided I wanted to work on a mid-tone. I'm thinking I'll probably take this to life drawing and use maybe charcoal or a charcoal pencil on, or a Conti crayon, and so I've already got that mid-tone there to work on. Okay, and like I say, really nice hard back, so when I'm working on my knee I've got something to lean on. So the second one is a watercolour paper. Again, you've got the pigs inside, which is just a little bit of fun, and then we've got a nice thick watercolour paper there, and it's got a smooth hot press paper that I chose. Again, you can choose your own paper and your own backing. So just have a look on the invoice, see what it said. Okay, so I just wanted to have a quick look and see if it said the actual grade of the paper, because I couldn't quite remember what I'd ordered. I think it was £140 hot press, but it's actually called Matte Amelie, that one, and the colour was amber. And with this one, this colour is sea grey, if you wanted to know the colours, and the colour of the paper in that one is cappuccino brown. So that one had 35 leaves, the watercolour paper had 25, but again, that's something that you can change. And I'm just smiling now because if we look here, the name of Pig Pink's business premises is Swine House, which I think is fantastic. So I'll just pop that out of the way and we'll have a go at doing something on this nice watercolour pad. So I've chosen a picture of Pixabay, and the one that I've chosen is this eye. I'll bring it a little bit closer to the camera so hopefully you can see all these colours. So many different greens and turquoises in that eye of that cat. A little bit of turquoise around here and a lot of detail in the pattern. So I'm going to do a nice big eye and try and get the shape of the eye socket as well, just to try out some colours on this pad and see how we get on. You'll notice I did a very quick sketch of the eye, made it a little bit bigger than it is on the original photograph. And now I'm going to test the colours down the side and then just try and catch some of those colours from that eye. You'll notice that I haven't clipped this down or put any masking tape on it, and that's because I bought this as an A5 size intending to take it out and about with me. So I'm not really going to be wanting to clip it down or taking too many things with me. I don't like carrying lots of things around. I like things that can fit in my handbag. So just to have this and some watercolours and maybe a brush, watercolour brush, you know, the ones with the water in them, is enough for me. I don't want to be carrying extra materials around, so I want to see how well it performs without clipping it down. But I'm not going to be using massive volumes of water. So to begin with, I'm going to do the outside and look for a nice cool grey. So there I've got cerulean blue, raw sienna and alizarin crimson, and there's actually more of the blue than there are of the other two colours because I want it to be a blue grey, not virgin on the brown side. And if we look here, we've got the shape, sorry I move my picture, the shape of the brow bone here and the shape of the nose here. So you want to get some of that in when you're doing an animal's eye. It's very important, the shape of the eye socket, as when you're drawing people as well. Think about the eye socket, not just the eyeball. That's only one very small part of the eye that you can see there. That extends back into that eye socket and is a much bigger sphere than the part we can see here. So think about getting this shadow in to show the shape of where the skull is going there. And we also need to leave plenty of white of the paper showing as well, because this cap clearly has the flash of the camera on that's causing that to shine. It's quite a silvery colour really. So this could take a while. I'm just going to build this up and always go in the shape of the direction of the hair's going in. And that's going to make it so much more convincing. So I'll continue now working my way around the eye, leaving some white of the paper, and then I'll come back and put another layer on to go darker where it's much darker. And if you just flick your wrist in the direction that the hairs are going and lift your brush as you go along so that this end of the hair is thinner than where you set off. And of course this is going to take a little time. Okay, so I've put a couple of layers of the grey on, and I don't want to overdo it. We're just testing this paper out and having a bit of a play here. We don't want to do anything too detailed. So just that same grey with those three colours of the original mix. Now you'll see how much this is separated on here. The cerulean blue really granulates. If you want to use a different blue, that's entirely up to you. Try different blues, try different mixes of grey using your three primary colours. But I actually like the way it granulates on the paper and the different colours come out. And it's quite a blue-grey cat, and it just makes the picture a bit more interesting the way it's separating on the paper. So you'll notice I kept mixing them back together to get that darker colour. And I will go darker again, and I'll keep this here because we'll perhaps put another layer of that on, or we might choose something else to go even darker. But for now I'm going to let this dry and then come on to the eye, and then afterwards I'll be able to put these eyelashes over the top of the dry colours that we've got on the eye there. Now that's nice and dry, I'll think about what colours to use for this eyeball. I should also have said that I'm standing up to do this drawing and painting, and part of that is so that we can get this sweep of the hair. You'll notice that I had my arm in a lot of different directions when I was trying to get that. Some's going over the nose, some's going around the eye there and forming that socket. So you've really got to get your arm going in different directions, so it's much easier if you stand whilst you're doing that. So if we look at the eye there, it's got a lot of very bright yellow green underneath, so I think we'll set off with putting that all over, apart from maybe this bit at the end where it's very blue. So we want to write a really acidy yellow. I'm just thinking I might go for the quinacridone gold, and I'm going to put that everywhere except where it's very turquoise, because we can go over this with the greens but the blue maybe not. So put the quinacridone all over that eyeball. Very different shape to our eyes. Every animal's eyes are different. We learn all these rules for painting humans, and with animals it's very difficult because they're all so different. So we have to rely on observation, looking carefully, taking measurements, and looking at the angles of the line of the eye. If anything, I've maybe got him a little bit wide, but I think perhaps it's looking like that because I've not got that dark enough in the centre there, which we'll come back to later when the colours are dried and make it darker around the edges. Some of this dark here, where I've not got this line fat enough, is because that's actually a shadow on there. This is the outside part of the eye, and this part is shadow, so we'll come back and do that later. So we need a nice bright green now as well. It's a very blue green, isn't it? I'm just thinking we might mix two together. And we'll mix this Winsor green with a touch of the quinacridone, however you say it. And let's just have a look at that. It's perhaps a lot brighter than on here, but don't forget it's going to fade with it being watercolour. You notice I'm mixing with a synthetic brush and then painting with my sable brush. I don't mix my colours off the palette with my sable brush. I usually just use them for painting with. So if you look now, it's very stripy. And all the stripes are sort of going in this direction down. So I'm thinking this eyeball is more oval than ours. The actual ball itself, most of which you can't see, which is underneath. And I don't know anything about the anatomy of a cat. I'm not going to pretend that I do, but I'm assuming ours is a perfect, well, not a perfect sphere, but ours is spherical. I'm not sure this is perhaps more oval shaped. Maybe somebody can answer that in the comments below if you know about cats and cat's eyes. So I've got him perhaps a bit too bright for the colours that we've got there. Be also very nice to do this in something like a watercolour pencil, so that you get all these fine details. I'm still using quite a big brush, so I'm not going to be able to get too fine a detail into this. I don't like fiddling about with little brushes, so I don't tend to have a lot of detail in my painting. But you could use a smaller brush and get more of the detail of these lines if you wanted to. This is peculiar, this little shape down the bottom here. If you get this picture from Pixabay, you'll be able to see that closer in the larger image. I'm pretty much working wet on dry there. It's drying very, very quickly, and I'd rather work wet in wet a little bit here, so I'm going to introduce more of the yellow and let them run into each other a bit, and then we're going to get some of this turquoisey colour. That looks a lot more natural, keeping them wet. It was drying quite quickly, that green, and it's actually nicer when we let those colours run together on the paper, because obviously an eyeball is a very wet, moist thing. It doesn't want to look dry. And again, if you wanted to make it more detailed, you could always do a nice wet in wet eyeball of 2 or 3 colours and then put these little lines over the top using your watercolour pencils or just an ordinary pencil. I might even do that myself when we come towards the end. But just see how much nicer that looks blending those colours together rather than having them dry. So let's get some turquoise. I need a bit more water in that. It's only a pale bit of blue that we're seeing, but it's a very bright blue. Just down here. Actually no, I've got too much water in that. We can't see the blue. That's better, so we can see that little bit of blue there. We've got a bit here as well. We do have a few bits and bobs of blue in other places in this eye. It's still nice and wet, so we can just let it bleed in. Again, move your arm around. Where these little lines are all coming in this direction, you need to be able to flick your wrist to get that. So move your arm around, don't always be tight like this. Get your arm. And that is what really makes the difference between standing and sitting to paint and draw. You can get those sweeps in. We've actually got a lot more colour in than I've just got the 3 at the moment. There is some browns in there and some more earthy yellows around here, orangey earthy yellows, a little bit more green here perhaps. So I think what we'll do is use some of those colours that we had, follow that line again there, use some of those colours that we had in this grey here. Can you see there how it's moved a little bit, where we've got a bit more water in that yellow than we have in the other 2 colours? So just keep watching it whilst it's wet and blend it in. But yeah, we'll just use a tiny touch and use it thicker so that it doesn't make cauliflowers. Some of the yellow raw sienna that we used earlier with a touch of the alizarin. Too much alizarin. And it makes sort of an earthy orange colour, which you're seeing in little areas in there. I'll just show you if you can see that. Can you see these little bits of orangey brown colours that are making that shape. And this needs doing whilst it's still wet. You could build the whole thing up wet on dry if you wanted. Again, as I've said with other watercolour videos, that's entirely up to you. I mean, I'm usually using a combination of both, some wet on dry and some wet in wet. But it's very much a personal preference. Wet in wet's quite good fun, it's a bit of spontaneity. And if we just follow that sort of circle round, that makes the shape of the eye a bit better. But we don't want to obliterate all that nice bright yellow that we've got underneath, but it will still shine through because that was the first layer and it'll still shine through. Okay, so I'm quite liking the colour in there now, but we do need to go a lot darker with the outside. So what we need to do now is allow these colours to dry. Whilst that was drying, I've made up a darker colour and I've used burnt umber and French ultramarine. I've actually got more ultramarine in there than umber so that it makes it a blue black rather than a brown black, to go with the colours of the rest of the cat really as much as anything else. And we're just going to look at where it's absolutely the darkest on here at the minute. So going around this edge of the eye. If you wanted to make it really as black as it is on the photograph, you could have done it with black paint. I don't use a lot of black paint, or some Payne's grey. You could have used less water and a thicker mix, or you could come in with some ink pen if you really wanted. You know, with a drawing pen you could get some of these nice fine lines here. It just depends if you want to keep it completely watercolour or you want to alter things. Wants to be nice and crisp there. You can see all the way around we've got a nice crisp edge to that eye there. There's a lot of highlight on this bit here where it's moist, some of which I've not preserved the white of the paper. I might have to come back on later with a white pencil or a white pen and get some of that back. And it's looking better now that we've got that dark going on. It's just picking the whole thing up really. It's quite a sharp angle on the eye there. If you see, we've got that line coming quite, crossing quite a straight line, and then from here down, not as rounded as our eye. And resist the temptation to go too far back into the fur with that dark colour, because there isn't really anything in his fur apart from these odd little flecks that are as dark as these areas here. So keep the dark colours for there, and we can always, when that's dry, we've still got that in the palette, we can always come back and put a little bit extra on. We've got this area here where we've got a lot of shadow going on, where it's the shape of the corner of the eye there. And I'm just going to get some of this grey, might need a little bit of water, it's started to dry. And can you see here, we've got a little line that separates the eye there. And some of those little lines that I put in with my pencil earlier as well. I think that's quite a good neutrally colour that we've already got on the palette that we could just make that little line with. And because it's quite weak and there's a lot of water in there, those other colours from underneath are still there. Just picking out parts of these little triangle-y shapes here, but not filling the whole thing in because some of this area, some of the lines are broken. It just helps give us a bit more detail on there. And then can you see we've got some darker lines coming round. I'm going to just use it a little bit for that as well, but try and keep it really, really fine if I can. I'm not great at doing fine things. I've not got patience for a lot of fine detail, as I've probably told you before, and you've probably noticed that we all have our own style and our own way of doing things, and I'm sure some of you do much more detailed and lengthy paintings than I do. So really this channel's all about just giving you ideas and maybe a bit of confidence to try things, rather than saying, you know, do it exactly as I'm doing. We've all got to build up our own style and develop our own style over time. So as well as adding some lines with that grey colour, I can also add some extra lines with the yellow, and I'm going to use that neat from the palette. Just to start and give us a bit more shape on this eye as well, and the other colours are going to come through from behind. There's actually a second row, see this is with looking more, there's a second row behind there of these little sort of triangle shapes as well, so just try and get one or two of those in. And this is the type of thing that you could spend all day doing, looking for this extra detail. We will have to let this dry again before we come back and put these eyelashes on that I talked about earlier. And again some of this blue, it wasn't quite blue enough down here. There's a little bit of blue around here. But all those colours are merging, so they're all on top of each other, so let's just keep layering them up, as long as we don't lose all that nice yellow from underneath. Okay, so once again I'll leave that to dry. I'm going to have to get this finished soon because it's going dark outside and the light's changing a lot here, and it might not be showing up too well for you. So what I'm going to do now is get the last little bit of dark in. It's going to go over that line once more, make it much darker along that bottom edge, and try and get that shape which I seem to have missed there. So at this stage you can refine things a little bit, get some nice sharp edges back that I've missed. Again, pop a little bit of that shadow up here, but not too much. We want the eye and the pupil itself to be the darkest things. I've got that little highlight a little bit low down, to be honest, I think. But again, nobody's going to have this reference photo, so they're not going to know exactly where the highlight was. So this is the point where it becomes tricky, and we're going to have to again move our arm around when we start to put these eyelashes across this pupil. And here, can you see I've not got it quite sharp enough coming down, so all the time you can correct yourself by building up from the lightest to the darkest. You can come back across with your dark colours afterwards and sharpen up any of those lines that you've got wrong. So really load your brush up before you start and do these eyelashes. There's a bit of shadow here which is very, very dark, and then we're coming across with these very long eyelashes, and some of them are coming from here all the way across. I'm not sure if the eyelashes or the shadow of the eyelashes in places, but that doesn't matter, it's just getting that black in. Can you see, I think some of these are the lashes and some underneath are the shadows. And don't overdo it, know when to stop when you're doing something like that. Here again, I've not gone far enough down with that shadow. Let's just get that So from where this line is here, needs to be closed in a bit. And around the edge there it's just a little bit shady where, and you can see that the actual cat itself would have a lot more detailing, but I wanted the detail to be in the eye there. So I think we're going to call it a day. If you did want to sharpen that up, you could come in with some pencils. You could do the black, like I said, with a nice fine drawing pen. And if you'd lost some of those highlights, something that I have, can you see here, we've got a little bit of a light on the bottom, that lid there. Something that I have is a white ink pen that we could just come along later with and pop on there. Now before I go, I'm just going to write on here the date, which today is the 20th of the 11th 18, and I'm going to write on there that this was for YouTube. And this is something that I advise you all to do with your sketchbooks, is to put the date on. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, whether you're a beginner just starting out and it's your first ever sketchbook, if you put the date on, it's great to refer back to and to see how you've progressed, but also it gives you a reminder of what you were doing on that day as well, particularly if it's something that you're doing out and about or on holiday or whatever. Putting the date on is going to remind you of that when you're looking back through your sketchbooks at a later date. It might also be quite nice just to write down that what media you've used. I mean, I don't need to on this because it's quite apparent that it's just watercolour. If you're using mixed media, you might want to write that down, but you might also want to write down colour notes. So I might write down all the colours that I've used here as well. So as far as the paper goes, it's worked fine. You can see it's a really nice, if I go like that, you can see what a nice thick paper it is. If you look at the other side, it's not come through at all. It's still nice and white, so we'll be able to do a nice little sketch on the back of there as well. So I will take this paper out and about with me. It's a really handy size, being an A5. I would recommend you put your name and your phone number or something like that in your back of your sketchbook as well, so if you do lose it when you're out and about, people can get it back to you. So thank you very much for watching. I will link the Pink Pig, I can't say this, can I? Pink Pig website down below in the description if you did want to take a look. The great thing about it, as I said before, is you can choose your own size of pad, the amount of paper that you've got in there, the type of paper and the colour of your pad as well. So it's very bespoke, so it's actually quite nice for a gift as well if you know somebody who's got favourite colours and favourite papers that they want to use. Okay, so that'll all be linked in the description below. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will also try and find, it's a few weeks since I downloaded this photograph, but I will try and find this once again on Pixabay. I'm assuming if I just type in cat's eye I should be able to find that, and I'll link that in the description below for you as well, if you wanted to have a go at that in any media that you fancied. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with you again soon, and bye for now.